Hey friends, I told you that I was going to have a guest reader, and I asked my sister Michelle. She's a junior high teacher. She was like, "That's not my gig. Not going to do it." And so my mom is here, and I asked her, and she said, "Of course I do it." She's retired, so she misses getting to see kids and reading to kids and being a teacher. So she is going to read our chapter today. So my mom has never read. You've never read Magic Tree House books before, right? Is that what you said?
That's right.
Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy. So
I taught kindergarten, so I read alouds that you could read in 15 or 20 minutes, the whole book.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, so she's gonna read, and I was trying to explain to her just what all Mary Pope Osborne does, and she's like, "Ooh, I think I might want to read some of these books." But anyway, so my mom's name is Roxanne. This is Roxanne Kerbo, and she's going to read chapter 8. It's called Moon Over the Nile. Now remember, in chapter 7, you want to show them that picture? Chapter 7, Jack and Annie had fallen. They only had an hour to have that mist work, and they were trying to get down, save the monkey, climb down the rocks, and they ended up both falling and really getting hurt. And normally Jack and Annie don't get hurt like as bad. They feel like stuff is broken possibly, and they're really hurt. And their donkeys took off, and they are kind of in trouble. So that's where we left off, and they were going to try to help each other walk back. And remember, it's getting dark. And what did the guide tell them? They said, don't stay out during the dark. And so let's see what happens. Remember, they're trying to find Florence Nightingale or help her. That's their mission. And so let's see if they actually maybe will be able to find her again. So Moon Over the Nile, take it away, Mom.
Okay. Jack took halting steps, supporting much of Annie's weight as she hopped on her left foot. His shoulder hurt terribly, but he tried to hide his pain from Annie. The Valley of the Queens felt spookier than ever. The jackals must be close by, Jack thought. And what about those tomb raiders that Ali had mentioned? Do we know the way back? Annie asked. From the top of the cliff, we could see the moon rising over the Nile, said Jack. So if we walk toward the moon now, we should come to the river. Good thinking, said Annie. Heading toward the moon and holding on to Annie, Jack kept walking slowly. Ow! Annie said softly with each hop she took. Annie's hopping jostled Jack's body, sending pain through his shoulder and arm. But he gritted his teeth and tried not to make a sound. He was afraid Annie wouldn't let him help her if she found out how much he was hurting. After only about 50 yards, Jack knew he couldn't support Annie's weight much longer. Okay, let's stop for a minute and rest, he said. Koku screeched. She let go of Annie's hand and bounded away. Koku, cried Annie, come back. Oh no, not again, thought Jack. Did she hear jackals? Look, there's a light, said Annie. She pointed at a flickering light moving toward them. We have to be quiet, Jack whispered. It could be tomb raiders. Tomb raiders? Said Annie, peering into the dark. I don't think so. She called out, We're here, we're over here, help us. Children? A woman called. We're here, Annie cried again. Koku screeched and came running back toward Annie and Jack. She chattered and jumped up and down. Out of the dark, Florence Nightingale appeared on her donkey. She was wearing a shawl and holding a lantern. Mustafa followed behind her on his pack horse. It's us, Jack and Annie, cried Annie. Thank goodness, said Florence. We've been looking for you. When we arrived at the river, Ali reported that your donkeys had returned without you. We were trying to save Koku from jackals, said Annie. She escaped from them and then got stuck on top of a cliff. We got up there okay, but we fell coming down. You poor things, cried Florence, climbing off her donkey. Please bring water for them, Mustafa. Mustafa dismounted and untied 2 canteens from his saddle. Florence carried her lamp over to Jack and Annie. Are you hurt, my dears? She asked in a soft, comforting voice. Yes, I hurt my ankle, said Annie. But I think Jack's in worse shape, even though he says it's no big deal. It's just my shoulder and my arm, said Jack to Florence. Oh my goodness, you are lucky, both of you, to be alive, said Florence. She gently felt Jack's shoulder and arm. He winced with pain and groaned. Can you move it, dear? She asked him. No, he said. Mustafa handed Jack a canteen and gave one to Annie, too. While Jack and Annie gulped down water, Florence spoke softly to Mustafa. Let's take them straight to the boat, she said. Jack can ride my donkey, and Annie and the little baboon can ride on your horse. Then she turned back to Jack and Annie. Mustafa and I will walk alongside you. There we go. Thank you, said Jack. He was relieved to have someone else in charge. Mustafa brought the pack horse over to them and carefully lifted Annie and Koku onto the saddle. Then he helped Jack climb onto the back of the donkey. Good. Now let us go, said Florence. She blew out the flame in her lamp. Mustafa tied it to the saddle of the pack horse, along with the canteens. By the light of the moon, Mustafa led the animals through the chilly night. Florence walked beside the donkey, staying close to Jack. They all traveled silently over the barren, stony ground until they came to the statues of the ancient Pharaoh. The giants looked like faceless gray ghosts in the moonlight. As the group headed down the dirt road toward the Nile, Jack did his best to sit up straight on the donkey's back. But every step the animal took brought Jack more pain. Once or twice he couldn't help crying out. Jack, Annie called to him in a soft voice. Remember what it felt like to be rock climbers? Did I skip a page? No.
No.
Though the words might have sounded strange to Mustafa and Florence, Jack knew exactly what Annie meant. Yes, he breathed. He worked hard to remember what it had felt like to be a great rock climber, to feel calm and centered. He tried to block out the pain in his arm and shoulder by closing his eyes and concentrating on the sounds of the night. Jack heard Koku making her baby baboon noises. He heard the cornstalks whispering in the wind. He heard the baying of sheep and bleating of goats. As they came closer to the Nile, he heard the rustling of reeds and croaking of frogs. He heard the hee-haw of donkeys. Jack's eyes shot open. Honey, he said. Bunny? Annie called out. Is that you? Hello, I have your 2 donkeys here, Ali called, rushing toward the travelers. They are safe. I am so glad that you are safe too. Can you please help us, Ali? Said Florence. We must get Jack and Annie back to the Bracebridge's boat. Ali quickly took the reins of the pack horse and donkey. Mustafa and Florence helped Jack, Annie, and Koku dismount. With Florence's help, Jack climbed into the rowboat. Mustafa picked up Annie and Koku and set them down next to Jack. Good night, Ali, said Florence, as she and Mustafa finally climbed into the rowboat too. Your grandfather will be back soon to take you home. Good night, Miss Nightingale, said the small boy. Mustafa's oars dipped into the water and the boat started gliding across the river. As he rowed, The guide sang his rowing song in time to the splashing of the oars. The Nile water sparkled, reflecting the moonlight. Jack loved the peaceful, mysterious feel of the ancient river. When they reached the opposite shore, Mustafa tied up the rowboat at the water's edge. "Please help the children out of the boat," said Florence. "Then you must hurry back to Ali. It is surely past his bedtime." Mustafa nodded. Florence turned to Jack and Annie. "I will be back in a moment with Charles and Selina," she said. She climbed out of the rowboat and hurried away. Mustafa helped Jack, Annie, and Koku onto the grass. "Thank you," said Annie. The old Egyptian nodded again. Then he got into his boat and began rowing across the glimmering Nile, heading back to his grandson. "Are you okay?" Annie asked Jack. "Fine," he breathed. He was in too much pain to say anything else. Jack heard voices coming toward them. Florence was hurrying down the riverbank with Selina and Charles. "Oh, my poor dears," cried Selina. "And Coco, there you are." "Did the Countess come looking for her?" said Annie. "No, she sent word asking us to keep Coco for the night," said Selina. "Oh, good. And can we stay too?" Annie asked shyly. "We'll meet up with our parents tomorrow morning." "Of course. Here, let me help you," said Charles, leaning down. "Put your arm around my shoulder." Annie did as Charles said. He lifted her and carried her back toward the moored sailboat. "We'll follow them, Jack," said Florence kindly. Florence and Selina walked on either side of Jack up the river bank, and Koku clambered behind, shrieking and making noises. Jack imagined she was talking about their scary adventure in the dark hills. Finally, the group arrived at the large sailboat. "Home sweet home," said Selina. "Into my cabin," said Florence. Charles and Selina helped Jack and Annie into the middle door of the long cabin. Koku followed and leapt onto a tall bed. Florence helped Jack take off his heavy long-sleeve shirt, his belt, and his hat. "Now make room for the children, Koku," Florence said to the baby baboon. Here you see Jack and Annie and Koku, and I guess Florence. Can they see that?
Mm-hmm.
And there's Florence. Or is that Selina? Who is that? Tiffany? Who's that?
I don't know.
We'll read
I think
and
that's
find out.
Florence, yeah.
Jack and Annie climbed onto the large bed, and Florence, Florence,
Yeah.
gently covered them with the blankets. "It gets quite cold at night," she explained softly. She draped mosquito netting around the bedposts as Selina lit kerosene lamps. Jack could smell the kerosene as the flames flickered and shadows danced on the green paneled walls. The boat rocked on the Nile, and a soft breeze came through an open porthole. Through the gauze of the delicate mosquito netting, Florence, Charles, and Selina looked like dream figures or angels to Jack. He closed his eyes, and finally he felt safe. And that's the end of chapter 8.
Good job. Ooh, I am so glad that Florence Nightingale finally did what they knew she was capable of. So she didn't believe in herself. And so I think that probably is going to be what the mission is they had to be in trouble for her to be able to pay attention to them. So she actually wasn't a nurse yet. And so they kind of got there right before, and they're trying to help her in her mission. And how cool that they got to sleep there and she was able to take care of them. And I love the picture of the monkey. Wouldn't you love to sleep with a monkey in the bed? How fun would that be?
Yeah.
So fun.
A baby baboon.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
That was so fun.
You came and read with us, and maybe we'll even let her read another chapter if she feels like it. And tomorrow we will read chapter 9. It's called
Heroes of the Dawn.
Heroes of the Dawn. And remember, there's only 10 chapters in this one. So comment below if you would like for me to read a certain book. If you let me know, I can go get that book. If I don't have it, I'll go check it out or buy it or something and read that book. So anyway, we'll see you tomorrow.
Series?
Yeah, well, it can be Magic Tree House, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a picture book. It can be a chapter book, whatever. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank y'all for reading with us today. And thank you, Mom, for reading with us.
Thank you, and thank y'all for listening today. This was a pleasure to me. I really miss reading to kids, which I did for 40 years. Read books every day to my class.
40 years. That's a lot
Yes.
of time. So maybe we'll have to have her back, and maybe you'll have to start your own YouTube channel, Reading to Kids. How fun would that be?
That would be fun.
All right. Y'all have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.